Listen for intent is the first element of the leadership communication model and is a critical skill that is often lacking in today's workplace. Active listening is most apparent when it is absent. When team members carry on more than one conversation at a time, interrupt one another, and jump from one subject to another, you can be sure people are not listening to each other. The consequences of this failure to listen range from vital information getting lost and ideas not being properly explored to hasty decision-making and inadequate consideration of alternatives. Furthermore, morale and teamwork suffer because people realize that their ideas, beliefs, and convictions are not being heard. As a result, they cannot impact the decisions being made or actions being taken. You can easily see why the failure of people to listen to each other results in inefficient organizations. When active listening is absent, we repeat ourselves until we feel we've been heard, or we finally give up and just comply with a given decision. Most of us probably spend more time listening than we do in applying all the other interpersonal skills and communication behaviors combined. Yet listening is the skill we do most poorly and seldom practice at improving. The lack of effective listening prevalent in today's organizations stems in part from the fact that we think far faster than we speak. The average rate of speech for most Americans is 125 words per minute, whereas the brain can process the language of our thoughts at 5 to 6 times faster than that speed. Consequently, because the words we listen to are processed slowly, our brains have time for other things. These other things include thinking up an argument to the speaker's position, creating responses that are aimed at impressing others with our mental acuity and intelligence, constructing a question that can't be answered, looking for hidden motives, or generally paying attention to something other than what the speaker is saying. For example, look at our phones. Considering the complexities and difficulties of oral communication, it's a wonder it works at all. However, much can be done to overcome the difficulties of effective listening. We can become effective listeners by first focusing on our own behaviors in meetings and one-on-one communications. What do we do when people say something that is counter to our own opinion? Do we focus on what they are saying and paraphrase it to acknowledge their point of view, or do we use the time while they are talking to formulate our response? If the latter is true, then understanding our own underlying motives and behaviors in these situations will go a long way toward learning how to modify our tendencies to become better active listeners. Understanding why we do not actively listen and then committing to improving will help us move significantly down the road toward becoming more accomplished interpersonal communicators. Here are 9 steps you can take to become a more active listener. 1. If you often reload while someone else is speaking, understand your inner motivation for doing so. 2. Be receptive to the speaker. 3. Avoid rushing to judgment. 4. Periodically summarize what has been said. 5. Pay attention to your own nonverbal behaviors as well as the speaker's. 6. Make eye contact. 7. Visualize yourself as a gifted, active listener. 8. Adopt these new behaviors immediately. 9. Practice them consciously and constantly. As a leader, you may find yourself with team members who do not actively listen. An effective procedure to use with groups that are experiencing communication problems is to temporarily require anyone who wishes to speak to summarize what the previous person has said to that person's satisfaction. This exercise creates a mindset that encompasses the 9 steps for active listening just shared. It also reduces the rapid shifts in subject that occur within poorly functioning groups. In addition to the strategies already discussed, excellent listeners also actively focus on the speaker's facial expressions and body language for nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication goes well beyond just figuring out whether people are being sarcastic. It can also tell you how emotional they are and whether they are getting angry. Your own nonverbal behaviors are often more important than the speaker's. Perhaps the most important nonverbal behavior is eye contact. Everyone is told from an early age the importance of eye contact to convey they are interested in what other people are saying. Furthermore, the lack of eye contact conveys not only lack of interest, but also a lack of self-confidence on the part of the listener. Some people actually do a good job actively listening, only to fall into the comprehension trap. The term comprehension trap refers to the inappropriate belief of thinking that if you comprehend something, it will be successfully stored in your memory for future use. Unfortunately, merely understanding what another person is saying in the here and now does not ensure you will recall or, even more importantly, act upon it at a later date. In fact, numerous studies have confirmed that less than 25% of what is heard in a conversation can be recalled only 24 hours later. Here are 4 strategies for overcoming the comprehension trap. Actively listen, test for comprehension, retain and commit the information to memory, apply the information, and put it to use. In closing, even though truly listening for intent is a challenge for many of us, with focus and practice, it can become a strength. Here are 4 activities to ensure we use our time wisely while listening. 1. Be open and receptive to the direction of the conversation. Resist the urge to formulate a rebuttal. More importantly, take notes of what is being said. Ask yourself, could I do a great job summarizing what has been said up to this point? 2. Objectively weigh the content being presented and avoid rushing to judgment. Many people falsely believe the speed of their response plays an important role in communication because a quick reply says, "I get it, see how sharp I am?" Thus, there is no need for you to continue. Some people rush to judgment because they think doing so conveys a sense of agreement with the speaker, like saying, "I agree and I am way ahead of you." Unfortunately, just the opposite occurs. Have you ever noticed how people react to being cut off before they finish saying what they have to say? It's certain that commitment does not come from being interrupted, nor does objective decision-making result from being less informed. 3. Periodically review and summarize what has been said. Introduce the following phrases into your communications. What you are saying is, "I want to make sure I clearly understand your point of view." Tell me if I'm properly summarizing your point of view. If you can't summarize the content, ask, "Could you repeat yourself? I am not sure I understood what you said." 4. Pay attention to the nonverbal as well as the verbal communication. Nonverbal is at least as important as verbal communication in almost every culture. In some cultures, it is more important than what is being said. If you doubt this, think of how the context, tone, and inflection do not necessarily tell you whether someone is being sarcastic. You need to see their facial expression and body language to tell whether they are truly in agreement with or mocking something. Use the techniques in the leadership communication model to transform active listening to positive interaction outcomes. Remember to actively listen, test for comprehension, retain, and apply the information you hear.